Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Deal, where we get real about business, entrepreneurship, and commercial real estate. I'm Lacey Labs, your co-host, here with Laura Martin. In this episode, we're joined by Justin Shaffer, founder of Growth Navigator Solutions. Justin has dedicated his career to helping organizations navigate complexity, align their leadership, and pursue meaningful and sustainable growth. He shares the early experiences that shaped his approach to strategy and leadership, and the vision behind Growth Navigator Solutions, as well as pivotal moments that led him into guiding businesses through seasons of change and opportunity. In this episode, you'll hear his perspective on what real growth looks like inside of an organization, the hidden challenges that often hold leaders back, and mindset shifts required to scale with intention, as well as practical wisdom that he'd offer to business owners and executives working towards their next chapter of growth. Justin Shaffer, welcome to Beyond the Deal. It's great to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Well, let's jump in and start with just that first question. Like, what's your backstory? How did you end up doing what you're doing? What led you to start this company, Growth Navigator? And just give us the story.
Yeah, so I'd have to go back quite a ways. You know, if I said to you, what's the first words that come to mind when you hear used car salesman? Probably slick, pushy, something along that line.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really exhausted and overwhelmed. Growing up, my father owned a few used car dealerships, and before I knew how to label it, what he was feeling, like that's just what I knew. When he came home at night or on the weekends, he just wasn't really that present. He was always thinking about work, always thinking about what struggle he was going through, and pretty distant. So fast forward a few years, I was in Army Special Operations, and I realized I was starting to lead that way as well. I had young kids at home. When I came home, I was distant. I was always thinking about, what do I need to do tomorrow? Who do I need to talk to? Everything. And not in a good way, right? In a very probably micromanaging type of way, and I didn't want to go hands off. And so I made a decision at a point. I realized I started seeing the indicators, and I realized that this isn't really the way that it's supposed to be. And so the next day I went in, I pulled in my inner circle of leaders, and I started laying out a vision for, like, here's what I'm thinking we need to be doing or where we need to be at next year. And I don't think we're going to get there. And it is what I really realized at that point. I gave them a few seconds to digest it. I think they were quiet because it was the first time that I really asked or shared with them sort of where I was stuck at in trying to lead the organization. And they immediately dug in. They liked knowing where I was actually trying to get them, because before I hadn't shared that. And they started coming up with ideas and suggestions and how the whole team could work together to accomplish that. And in that moment, I realized that's probably a question that my father never asked anybody, because for whatever reason, and I love my father, but for whatever reason, he held every decision close. And so when I realized that, I realized there's a different way to lead, there's a different way to grow, there's a different way to encourage people in that. And so that's really why I started Growth Navigator Solutions, because I want to help business owners and their teams not make the same mistakes that my father did and that I almost did, because they can have success both at home and in business, but it takes really concerted effort.
Awesome. So you were in the military when you had this kind of discovery and learned this leadership style. How long was it from the moment, like kind of like pivotal moment where you realized, like, I got to change the way I'm doing this, and shifted your team, and like how you got to today? Like, give us that, like.
Yeah. So that was around 8 to 9 years left in the military. So around the 12 to 13 year mark.
Okay.
And then I stuck in for 20 years. And so I continued to hone that and learn and figure out, like, this is how I want to lead and I want to grow in this. The challenge was, as a veteran retiring, it was just before COVID, so I don't really have that excuse. But I just made every mistake that veterans make. The average veteran will have 3 jobs within, like, the first couple years of getting out, whether they spend 20 years in or an initial obligation. So I did that. I held 3 jobs in the first 3 years, and it was extremely frustrating. I felt like I had failed. I hadn't found where I'm supposed to be at. I always had a desire to own something of my own and to build my own team, but I couldn't really figure out what that was, whether it was a franchise or buying a business. And so I just kept on reading. I kept on talking to people, and I ended up realizing that ultimately is what I want to do is help people hit the bullseye. I did the Simon Sinek, find your purpose, your why.
Yeah.
And that was my catch line, right? Help others hit their bullseye. And so that's what I feel like I'm doing now.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So how do you kind of work with people? So someone comes in, they're struggling with growth, right? Growth is kind of your initial lead in. You want to grow. How do we do it? So when that conversation happens with someone, what are some of the biggest things that you're usually seeing that client struggling with besides growth? Like, okay, growth is kind of that front thing that they say, the presenting problem, right?
Right.
But what are sort of some of the things you're seeing behind the scenes that are common obstacles or kind of bumps that they're hitting that are people can maybe identify for themselves as they listen to this podcast and say, oh, that's what Justin does.
So growth is an interesting word because all three of us probably have a different vision of what flashes in front of your mind. Some people think more money. Some people think size, clients, impact, right? If you're a nonprofit or even if just you're community focused. Is what I like to see or is what I look to see is if their growth is outpacing their structure. So is what that looks like to me is everybody is busy. Everybody is working hard on something, but when you really look at it, they're not aligned, right? They're just putting out fires. And that seems to be a common phrase that people use. But if you're just putting out fires, if nobody's thinking about the future, 3 to 5 years down the road and aligning those effort, everybody goes home exhausted. And they really don't know what they accomplished.
So your goal is to really bring like purpose and alignment. You're helping leaders actually see inside their company from a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I talk a lot about meetings, and I always get pushback with meetings. And we all know meetings are one of those bad words in business.
20 minutes or less.
Standing
With
meetings.
an agenda.
Yeah.
It has to have an agenda. It has to have a defined goal. And but my goal specifically with meetings and other things is it's not about doing more. It's about doing it better and more streamlined. Doing it at the right time, knowing who's accountable for what, and giving everybody a scorecard.
Do you put metrics around stuff or like help people develop metrics?
Absolutely. So I work with making sure every employee has a scorecard, what we call it. It's 2 metrics. It's things that they should be able to count for themselves and report on every week. And you think about an athlete, you look at the scoreboard and you know if you're winning, right? But most employees don't have a scoreboard. They really don't understand how their role drives the business strategy and the goal. So what we want to do is give them purpose, get them to understand how that they're driving that business strategy and the ultimate impact. So that way they can report out on it and they really know what impact they're having. And so those scoreboards go up from individual contributor all the way up through department and the business, and they're all nested in there like a well-defined war plan from my Army days.
And people have 2, just 2.
Just 2. And I would aim for them, maybe they're updated quarterly, right? Based off of where your focus is at, based off of when I start to work with a client, we find some things that maybe have been ignored for a little while. So we move them up. Let's focus on them. Let's get them cleaned up. At the end of the quarter, if they're good, if they've got the rhythm and they can move on to another scoreboard or another metric, then we change them out.
So how are you finding your clients? Like, how do people know that you're out there and that you offer this?
I am trying to do it purely by word of mouth because it is a lot to ask to come into a business, to meet with the leadership team, to have that access, right? So I take them off-site. I take them out of their environment so that way there's no room for distractions. Many times I really try not to have them on computers or on the devices. We're writing on paper, we're talking, we're throwing things up on the board, up on the walls. When I get done with a room, it looks like I just wallpapered the whole room with everything.
So this is your regular meetings, you're saying, off-site. And then how often are you meeting, or does that vary?
I do tailor everything to the client, what they ultimately need and what I think is going to get them there. But generally speaking, in the first year, we're going to meet probably about 7 or 8 times.
Okay.
And then after that, we'll meet 5 or 6 times.
Okay. And then do you have like company sizes you tend to work with?
So it seems to be the ideal, the smallest company would be about 20 employees. And if you think about that, that is probably where that growth is outpacing the structure because you've started getting middle managers, which I don't like the word manager, but those first line leaders, maybe the first time that they've ever led teams. And so that starts to really show its immaturity. And then up to 200, we can go. And honestly, I don't think you can really ever go too big because it all comes down to layers.
Yeah. And is it any industry?
It is. I was sharing, I'm working across many industries because ultimately I think getting results comes down to good leadership. And if you're attracting people, if you're leading them well, if you're motivating them well and building strong teams, then you're going to be successful to some extent, right? And I work to help them define what is success, what is it this quarter, what is it this year, what is it 5 years from now, so that way you're not looking back and saying, I don't think I'm far enough, I don't think I've accomplished enough, right? Dan Sullivan talks about the gap in the gain.
Yeah.
You've sort of said this a couple of times now. You typically work with companies they've scaled and they're kind of in chaos mode. They've grown more than they were prepared to. Everybody's kind of scrambling. That's your typical situation that you step into.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you ever step into something different?
I did work with a nonprofit last year, and we worked together and framed it. They had a new strategic initiative that they wanted to kick off, and they really wanted to get a running start to that strategy because it had changed so many things, and it was a large organization. And so we worked together for about 7 months to really make sure everything was teed up, so that way when the fiscal year started, the funds were aligned and everybody could kick off. They hit a running start with that. So we're about a quarter into that, and I'm getting ready to check back in just to see how it's going.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you typically work with the leaders. Do you ever run into where they want you to work with somebody else in their company? I mean, I guess you have to have some connection with them and intel, but I just wonder.
So I primarily work with and for the owner, but then their whole executive team.
Okay.
And so many times the questions will be about, one of the leaders or a few of the leaders need some help, need some coaching. And so I'm there for them. If they want to talk on the phone, if there's something that happened during one of the workshops that they're unsure about, feedback, one-on-ones with employees is a big topic right now. Many people have never given honest, candid feedback in a way that didn't feel like that they were attacking somebody, right? And so they do that once, and then they don't want to do it ever again. And so I work with them on that. Like, let's role play, or let's talk about how you say that, how you lead in. It's also about, I tell them it's about giving their employees more of a voice. Let them go first. Let them express themselves. You can't have healthy conflict without having both people talk.
Yeah, it's true.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. So when conflict probably has to be a pretty big part of what you do, at least to some extent. There's points where you're going to hit it.
It is. And it's interesting. It's fascinating because I'd say that the two areas where I do have to lead the owner down the road before we get working together is there needs to be accountability, not in a bad militaristic type of way, but you have to know what you're accountable for.
Yep.
That way the team holds each other accountable, but you've got to have that healthy conflict. And you've got to be able to tell people you didn't meet the intent, you didn't accomplish this, and you'll see if your people will take ownership of that. Because if they won't, then maybe that's a discussion that they're not in the right position, or they don't have the right mentality to be that leader in that role. And then you just have that discussion with them, ability to coach it, develop it, and at the end of it, see if it's the right fit.
So you have a lot of hard conversations.
I do, and I will give my owners credit, right? In those sessions, their teams are expressing some things that maybe because of the chaos hasn't been said.
Yeah.
And so those times away gives everybody a chance to say it and hear it. And then we dig into it. We really understand it, and the owners respond phenomenally well. Once they see their team, they see how committed they are, and everybody's in there working together towards that strategy. It's really amazing. I love it.
So you usually go off-site, and is it like a half day, full day?
Typically a full day. I typically start at 8:30 in the morning, and then somewhere between 3 to 4, I tell them. So we use a room, we get lunch catered in, brought in. I've got snacks all over the table, and I bring everything for them. Is all I want them to do is just show up,
Be present.
mentally prepared
Yeah.
to have those conversations and leave aligned. And so far, knock on wood, everybody leaves completely aligned. They can't believe it, right? And so when you ask a leadership team that has been in chaos to take a day off and work on the business, but yet they actually feel like they're going to work the next day completely aligned. I never have gotten a team to say, "Hey, we can't do a full day. We can't take that time out." So it's been really great.
It's interesting.
So you have the buy-in before you even step foot in the room because you're.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. In fact, my process, I'll have a few calls or meetings with the owner, get them everything that they're worried about or concerned about or want to talk about, get their buy-in. And then I go meet the team. And I go meet them with them for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it takes. I give them a taste of what it's like to sit in a room with me, hear me talk, see my body language, my mannerisms, the vocabulary. Many people here I'm military, and just like growth, a persona comes in front, right? And so I want to have a chance to either validate or invalidate that for them. So through that process, through that meeting with their teams, I ask them 2 questions to think about. Is Justin Shaffer the right person to help you on this journey, to go alongside of you and work with you? And is the framework that I covered between my military background and how I partner with Pinnacle Business Guides, is that going to get you to the next level? If the answer to both of those questions are yes, then let's get to work. If either of them are no, let's talk about it. And if it can't be resolved, I will help you find somebody else that is better suited for you, because that's going to be better for both of us in the long run. But that's what I'm trying to get to, is where everybody, because when we show up at that first day, we're going to roll up our sleeves and really start working. And I don't want that to be the first time that we're feeling each other out.
Does sound like one big therapy session.
There's got to be elements, right? Yeah, makes sense. So tell us a little bit more about your partnership with Pinnacle Business Guide and kind of how that framework, how you use it, what it is.
Yep.
A bit more about that.
No, I love the Pinnacle community. So it is a loose community of members, really sort of like a large mastermind group. And so with being a member of that, I have access to all of their material, their tools, the community, right? If I can ask questions or partner with, we have some preferred partners that work on a national level, but then I get to bring myself to it and merge it with my military background and my personality. So is what I like most is it's a very encouraging group that's not competing against one another. They have made me better. They've made me better at branding myself, at marketing myself, but also in my facilitation methods.
Do they have conferences or gatherings? Like, is it like a membership thing?
Yep, absolutely. So we get together. In fact, we just did last week in Austin, Texas. We get together 3 times a year. And there, the founder of Pinnacle was a former EOS implementer for many years. He puts together a program to where we bring in keynote speakers, we bring in different things to up-level and upskill us, and come back. And so in that, we get re-energized. We're sharing with lessons learned. I love the fact that we have all types of prior successful business people, some in the financial world, some that own their own business. But generally speaking, it's all purpose-driven leaders that are just trying to bring a better solution, more tailored solution to our clients.
Purpose-driven. So is there some kind of guiding purpose or principle of Pinnacle that kind of centers you guys or brings you all together?
Yeah, it's sort of a tongue tie. So it's all around P's. So we start with people, but we believe that people plus purpose plus playbooks plus performance will equal profit. And is what I like about that is profit, again, it's feedback from the marketplace, right? So if you're doing those 4 things well, the feedback from the market is going to be, we're going to buy your service or your goods. And so you're going to be a profitable company if you're doing those 4 things well. If you think from a nonprofit perspective, maybe that profit is impact, right? So if you're doing those 4 things well from a nonprofit perspective, your impact is going to grow and you're going to accomplish your mission.
Yes. That makes sense. Is there one of those points that you find is usually the biggest struggle for people as you work with businesses, or is it kind of all over the map?
Each one of them are special in their own ways, right? And I think people is probably the biggest struggle and challenge because you've grown. If you think about, and even with myself, I'm starting this business, I have no employees right now. As I grow and scale, I might bring on, whether they're fractional employees or others, and those first couple are going to be easy because they're probably going to be somebody I know through a network, and they've been vetted, right, through peers and through friends. But as you grow more and more, you start hiring people that you don't know. And you come in, and then we get into playbooks, right, and those processes that have not been systematized.
Yeah.
And so the common thing that you see at that first branch out, maybe around 20 employees, 25 employees, who does what?
Yeah.
Right? I used to do that. What's my role? How do we cut this line, draw this organization in a clean way that everybody really knows now with this new structure? And then you've got to have the performance, right? Then the accountability comes in. So it sort of leads, it's stair step. We tackle them all at once as we grow and scale and build this framework for the client. But ultimately, if I had to pick one, it always starts with and consistently is around people.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. It makes sense, like the leader-driven side, right? Like it starts at the top.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
Yeah.
If the leader is not present, if they're not communicating their vision, right? If a leader is unable to articulate to their team where they want to be at in 3 to 5 years, the team is going to struggle.
Yep.
They're just going to struggle because it's just whack-a-mole at that point.
Yep. You're just doing random tasks.
Right,
You feel
you're
like
just-
you did stuff and moved something forward, but you're not sure
Unfortunately,
what.
you're just clocking in and clocking out.
Right.
You're just doing your job and survive until the next day.
Yeah. So you work with all these leaders. I would imagine that there's some amount of pressure on you that you feel to be a good leader and set a good example, because they're looking at you saying, okay, you're the guy. So what are your personal like habits and guiding outside of Pinnacle that help you be like a leading leader who's leading all these leaders into
Right.
better leadership?
Yeah, that's a great question because I do try to emulate for my clients what they should expect and what they should do. So from my preparation for the workshops, right, all the way through, I'm keeping time, I'm keeping us on schedule, but ultimately not for just the check block of the time, but to make sure we get done what we want to get done. But other ways I do that outside of my workshops, I have a daily grind. I'm always thinking about who do I need to talk to today, whether that's a prospective client, a current client, or somebody in my network. Who do I need to reach out, keep that relationship going, keep that conversation going, because everybody is busy. And one of the challenges I've had getting out from the military is, do people follow up with what they said, right? And I try to be that example. If I tell you I'm going to do something, or I tell you I'm going to call you on a certain day or whatnot, I need to do that because I want you to follow up with your team,
Yeah.
because otherwise we lose trust. The other way that I look at on a daily basis is how can I provide more value, right, to those clients by ultimately putting myself in their positions. Okay, I know that they had these conversations. I know that they're struggling with this the last time. What are they probably feeling today? What do they need encouragement from? What do they need to check in on? And so that way, I want them to feel like I'm right there with them every day, regardless if I'm there in person or not. But I check in with them on a routine basis, and whether it's over email or phone, and I'm listening for where they struggling, where they not sure about what happened. So that's really my focus, is always keeping them and my network top of mind.
Makes sense. It's all about relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in your journey, let's go backwards. Before all of this, before that moment of realizing the leadership, or even during that process, are there any people that you think of if I say the word like mentor or influence on how you kind of came to that point and kind of developed in your leadership style and who you are as a leader?
I've been blessed. In the military, I had phenomenal leaders, both seniors. I had a phenomenal peer group, and the soldiers and the warrant officers that I worked with were just tremendous. I owe all of my success to those three groups. I could not list everybody out there. But through that community, and then leaving in the corporate world, and now at Pinnacle, I would not be where I'm at in these last 2 years with my practice if it wasn't for the Pinnacle business guides, right? I had some other people that I had sort of met that encouraged me just to do this on my own and build it completely from scratch. And I probably could have done that, but why? Pinnacle they've got the framework, they've got experience. A lot of them are former EOS implementers that wanted to do more for their clients and with their clients. And so because of that, and now that Pinnacle allows me to really bridge the gap and fill in my leadership, my personality, my branding, it's just a perfect fit. So that community is absolutely phenomenal to be part of.
I'd not heard of it before. How'd you find it?
So I found it. A friend referred me to Traction, the book Traction by Gino Wickman. Yep. Read it, loved it. It resonated with me. The structure, right? Yep. Pretty rigid, pretty set.
Military.
Military. Yep. It felt like, okay, this is somewhat very similar to what I did. Yep. I looked in the process of joining them. I looked at the FDD. For some reason, I just got cold feet. I looked at a lot of other franchises, and I got cold feet with them as well. When I looked at the purpose and where it was going, right, it had just been bought a few years prior by private equity, and that just made me a little uneasy. Franchises are always meant, I personally believe, for the franchise ultimate success. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of things that I couldn't do by bringing my military background and merge that, because it's a pure brand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I started looking on LinkedIn for other things, and I came across a gentleman, Ryan Giles, down in Louisiana, and I reached out to him, said, wow. I'm looking at joining EOS, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Talked to him, and then he encouraged me to talk to Greg, who founded Pinnacle. Okay. And so Greg and four others from EOS decided that the system needed more and that they could do more. So they left EOS and started Pinnacle. And from there, they just started growing and growing. And it's a small community. It's only about 150 of us across the U.S. and a few in Canada. But it is growing. Both things pop up on LinkedIn. The marketing is getting better. And they kept, the interesting thing was when that core 5 left, all of their clients stayed with them, right? Wow. And so that told me clients aren't really looking for a named system. Correct. They're looking for a partnership. Yeah, it's on the relationship. It's on the relationship side, right? And so the more and more I do this, I realize there's more operating systems out there, and that's great, right? But I really would encourage anybody thinking about partnering with somebody like this, you've got to believe that person. You want to work with them. You want to really show up, sit in a room with them all day on a phone, hear what they've got to say, and believe that they're committed to your individual, not just growing their practice. Mm-hmm.
So you found your fit.
I did.
That's so great.
I did. I think there was a time at which I was counting down to my next retirement, right? And now I don't know when I would retire and stop doing this. I just love it. You
found your passion.
Yes.
That's awesome. Some people never find it. So
I feel 25 all over again. I'm not, but I feel it from the standpoint of work.
That's so great.
You should tell your kids that, though.
They're going to be like, 25 is so old.
My friends will ask me if I'm going to hire anybody. And I go, I don't know. I might need a fractional person here and there type of thing. And my son hears that. He raises his hand. He says,
how old is he?
He's 15.
Aww. Okay.
He just wants a job so bad. Which is great, but I tell him his job is school right now. Yeah. But he raises his hand. He says, "Can I be your first employee?"
Well, he's really sweet. He's watching you do something you love, so
yes,
it's appealing to him.
And I believe it's helping me to be a better father, more present, and more with them. I mean, they encourage me every day, every morning. They're like, "Dad, have a great day at your meetings with your clients. We're praying for you. We're thinking about you."
Sweet.
So it's really great.
So 15. Boy.
15, and then I've got 2 girls, 14 and 10.
That's great.
Yep.
They grow like little weeds.
They really do. Okay, so for someone who might be listening, and they're like, I'm feeling stuck. I've been thinking about this, I don't know, maybe I need to talk to Justin, or maybe I just need a next step. What would you say are next steps for a leader feeling stuck, whether it's overscaled and not really knowing how to manage, like putting an operational system in place, or maybe even a leader who's trying to gain some momentum in their business? What would your first step advice be for someone in those situations?
I think the first step has got to be, do your people really know where you're trying to go? Right? If I go back to, again, my journey, and the thing that clicked with me the most was my people team did not really know where I was trying to lead them to. And so that's got to be the first question, because the leader, the owner sets the vision. I don't think that's something that you can delegate to anybody else. You have to tell your team where you're going. They won't figure it out. They're not going to guess, because they want their paycheck. They want their job.
Yeah.
Right. And so with that, if you're not giving them a vision, they can't see where that they're going to be at, what their role is in the future of that company. And so another company, another leader who reaches out to them and is able to explain to them where they want to go, or a path for them that means their personal growth, their family growth, whatever's important to them, you're going to lose that talent to that leader, to that person.
So whenever that happens, I'm curious now, that kind of prompted in my mind this question. How often do you have a leader just say a dollar amount? Like, where are we going? Oh, we want to hit $5 million. Okay. I mean, if I'm sitting as an employee, that's great, but that's not really like a vision that I'm like, oh yeah, my vision is to help you reach $5 million. And I'm sold out just because of that number. What, how do you take that from okay, that's not a bad vision. It's a somewhat good vision to say growth, and this number feels big and I want to get to that number. But how do you translate that to an employee that helps them feel meaningfully, what's my role in that, and how do I get excited about helping you get there?
Right. That's great. And I don't know off the top of my head, maybe half will defer to a number, a revenue number or a profit number or something like that. And then I'll just simply ask, why? What are you going to do? What does that look like when you're at that revenue number? And so we're talking about, what do their sales teams look like? What do their ops teams look like? What does their marketing team look like? What is their community impact, right? What's their referral source? What does that look like? Because then you start getting into where their growth has bred the chaos, right? Is that we didn't start thinking about how we have to grow the teams.
Right.
But through that discussion, then people start seeing, oh, well, if we're going to grow this team, we need more leaders. Now, how do we develop and recruit leaders? And so I don't shy away from that. I do find also sometimes employees, they might be hesitant to talk about, even with the owner, about their profit or the revenue. But most employees want the owner to reinvest in their teams, right? They want better buildings. They want better offices. They want bigger impact in the community. They want more than what they're doing now. And with that comes the need for profit. Yeah. A business has to have profit, has to be profitable to stay in business and to do more.
Yep.
And so if you're in a highly technical field or something that you have to invest in a lot of machines, you need that profit, and you need to plan that into your plan. So you might have to spend a few years tweaking the profit margins in order to pay for those type of equipment upgrades or growing a team, right? You don't want to hire and then shrink your profit margin down, and then another unexpected circumstance happens, and now you jeopardize the company. So I think when we are able to have that whole conversation, the revenue number might start it, but then navigating through that and getting the whole team to talk about what does that really mean, I think it's powerful for them.
So you usually have that conversation not just with the leader. You actually usually have that conversation with them.
We have that in the room. In fact, I stress to the owner before we start, we're going to talk revenue, we're going to talk profit, we're going to talk numbers, we're going to set goals. It's important because it's been proven in different research. Jack Stack wrote a book. As employees understand what's going on in the business, they're willing to push harder or help another team if they realize that they're lagging. But when you don't share that knowledge, they don't know.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, well, somebody else will take care of it. Right. And that's not really their fault. The leadership decided to hold that back because they know better, or they they think they know better.
So maybe tough question. How do you advise leaders when you run into bumps where you have employees or even whole teams maybe where there's a leader that's leading a team where they're kind of not really on vision, not really on mission? You said you've left meetings with everybody aligned, so maybe this hasn't happened to you. But I would imagine it exists in the world that you kind of have, especially operating in chaos. Everybody can just be trying to do their wheelhouse well. And then when you try to bring everybody together, that you hit some well, we're doing this well. Or I'm kind of following my own vision over here to do a thing I want to do, and that doesn't really align with the rest of the company. How do you handle those kind of misaligned, conflicts? We kind of talked a little bit, but just, that kind of, somebody actually has a vision and it's not aligned. And yeah.
It's actually one of my favorite parts because I think the most growth happens there. So one of the first exercises or workshops we'll do is I'll lead them through a talent assessment. And it's a quad chart. It looks pretty simple, but there are so many lessons that come out of it and so many discussions. Most people, when they think about ranking their employees or who's an A player, will think productivity. You'll just default to who does their job the best, who's good at it, who don't I have to micromanage on doing their job every day. Right. But then we have these other people that I would call cranks or cavemen. Or cave people. And those are the ones that really, they're not bought in on the culture. They're not helpful to the rest of the team. And you're losing your good, talented people because of those people. So that's the first step, is understanding where everybody in your company is at. But what's magical with that is really realizing every leader is evaluating that differently. And so the first thing is we have to come up with what is an A player, what is a B player? What is a C player? What does that look like? And talk about it. And it's probably new to the company. So I'm not telling them to go out and fire anybody, but let's talk about that. So does that person need developed by being a better teammate in their core purpose and their core values, or do they need better productivity coaching and development conversations? So John Maxwell wrote a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.Is first rule is the law of the lid. And what it states is basically you cannot lead people to outperform your leadership, right? And so when they're plotting the employees and the leaders, I look at where the leaders are being plotted at, right? Whether they're first line leaders or whether they're on the executive team, where are they plotted at? And then we have a candid discussion. Is that team struggling to perform? It might be a leadership problem. So now you have different ways to look at that lens and to really understand it ultimately comes down to leadership. And if your leader is not a good leader, they might be a good individual contributor. And one of my qualms with companies is they typically promote the best individual contributor, right? Rather than, and they don't develop leadership. In the Army, I spent 4 years at college learning leadership, and I spent 20 years practicing it. We had never arrived. So this thought of just because you get one title of being a leader, it's still an ongoing process. So when you see that all overlaid, you can really see where the problems are at and why that they're happening. Either your recruiting process is not really finding the right people, or you're not attracting good people, or your leaders are not leading that well.
Interesting. How often do you see a problematic leader actually be able to come back around and get realigned when they understand what an A talent is and can self-assess? Is that usually possible? People usually come up.
It is
do
possible,
that
and is what I work with my clients on is if that's going to happen, more than likely it's just going to take one conversation. But it's got to be very clear. In here's where I think you need developed at. Their initial reaction to that, if they're pushed back, I don't need to. That's not real. I don't believe that. It's probably going to be very difficult to turn them around the corner because a leader should be self-learning, right? You should have a bit of a thick skin and realize nobody's perfect. But the good ones will lean into that and say, okay, I got it now. I understand the new rules. I understand how we're doing this. And they'll adjust. So you know pretty quickly.
Okay. Attitude kind of is the metric. Yep, makes sense. All right. Well, we should wrap this up soon. So I want to ask you two kind of closer questions. The first one is just what advice would you give to anybody generally who wants to follow in your footsteps and become a leader of leaders and kind of learn how to do business growth and leadership well?
I think you have to really enjoy the process. You have to be somebody that understands Rome wasn't built in a day. You need to grind. There are lessons to learn in each one of those grinds. Every no is a future yes, right? Every conversation could lead to another conversation, and you never really know. In fact, I'm now getting phone calls from people that I met last year, and unfortunately, I have not kept the relationship going, but they remembered something. They met somebody else, and they're like, hey, I think Justin does something like that. And so you've got to really understand that this is just like gardening. I've recently got into gardening. I'm growing tomato plants. Those seeds sometimes take a while, and you have to enjoy that. You have to enjoy that so that way when it does bloom, it's just beautiful.
It's cheaper to buy them, I've decided. I've tried gardening. It's never gone well. It's hard work.
It is. It takes a lot of patience and just consistent.
Especially tomatoes. They're picky.
Yeah,
those plants are picky.
And my guess, in your position, you have to be willing to have a lot of hard conversations.
I do.
That can't be easy.
Because I'm not a cheerleader for the owner.
Yeah.
And so the owner has to also understand that I'm going to challenge them, right? But in a good and a loving way, right? The team, nobody's off limits. Nobody has the best ideas. Nobody has the worst ideas. We need to explore everything. And so a lot of the workshops we're just kind of throwing ideas out. And there'll always be somebody on the team that just naturally wants to shoot down the conversation.
Everything.
And I go, hey, hold on. We're not skeet shooting. Put your shotguns away. Let's just get everything up on the board. Let's see where everybody's thoughts are at. Because it's impressive when you give the whole team the chance just to say their voice. If their idea wasn't picked, they're okay with that. They want the voice. They want everybody to validate that, okay, let's look at that. Let's give it a fair take. If it's not a right fit, oh well. But when you don't give people voices, they shut up.
And you're just dealing with leadership, right? You're not dealing with layers under that.
Typically, no. Typically, it's just the owner and the executive level. If that opportunity presented itself, like I would just talk to the owner because, again, it's about tailoring it for what they need. We set their 3 to 5 year vision where they want to go. And if it means I've got to do something a little bit different and help them engage on a different level, I'll do that.
I'm in a women's group, and it's all women business owners and have been for, 8 years. But a lot of it is personnel problems. It's amazing to me how that can affect an office. One person.
Yep. In the Army, we would spend a lot of times outdoors and in the rain. Now, to my Army friends out there, I was a pilot, so I didn't spend that much time in the rain. But it was amazing that the first person that complained about being cold or wet, the group mentality was just to get that stop, because that just breeds in you.
It brings you all down.
Oh, that's right. I am cold. I am wet. This does.
Thanks for letting me know.
Thanks for letting me know. You don't have to be a cheerleader, but you don't need to be, as some people say, a Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I think that's one of the bigger problems that I see, just even in general, just out in the public. There's the customer service attitudes, mean people. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But do you ever deal with like crises? Like, does someone ever call you up and say, I've got this one specific problem? Or you're just more about this is a long-term relationship kind of thing?
No, I do. I recently, one of my owners called, as they're growing and scaling more, they've added some employees, and there's just continuing to be counseling and discussions. And so he likes to call once in a while, say, hey, Justin, run this through me. Am I thinking about this right? Like, how do you see this? I mean, I've spent almost 2 years with him, working with him and his team, so I know them pretty well, right? So sometimes you'll get that, or just bouncing ideas off, and so I always tell them, if I can't answer, it's because I'm with another client. I will call you right back as soon as I can.
Yeah.
But if a client calls, I'm answering the phone because they need me.
Do you ever do one-offs for people for emergency stuff?
Absolutely.
Could be a future client, right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. If somebody, and also sometimes companies, maybe they're less than 20 employees. And what I'm saying resonates with them, right? And so maybe it's a one meeting, and maybe it's one of my tools, the talent assessment. Maybe we go over that and I talk to them about how do you do this? Here's some things to see. Let's walk through this. What does this mean? Or even strategic planning. Hey, what are you thinking about this? And so, I'll gladly give anybody an hour or so of my time. And because that's another person that's out there. And ultimately, I'm just trying to help business owners. If they're my client, great. If they're not, I'll do my best to get them to the next step. Because maybe they're 5 employees right now, and I want them to grow.
Sure.
When they get to 15 or 20,
Call you.
they can call me.
Are you from this area originally?
I grew up in Montoursville,
Okay.
Central PA.
Yeah.
Graduated from Montoursville High School, and then I went to school at King's College in Wilkes-Barre.
Sure. But were you all over the place with the military?
I was. My first assignment was in South Korea.
Wow.
And then Savannah, Georgia. I love Savannah, Georgia. And then Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And then I did a short 1 year at Fort Bragg, and then 3 years on campus at Widener University, Villanova, Westchester, where I led the Army RTC department.
What did you fly?
I started off flying Apaches, AH-64s, and then I spent about 8 years in special operations where I flew the Little Bird.
My nephew was Naval Academy. We're a big military family. Went Marines and flew Hueys.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So, very cool.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Seems like a lifetime ago, but it was only 6 years ago when I got out. 7 years ago now.
Blink, time flies right on by.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Well, we have a closer question for you, Justin. If you could go back and start your career over again, all right, but keep all this knowledge and experience that you've gained from your years in military, your years in business, is there anything that you would do differently, and why?
Yeah, that's interesting because my initial gut is like, well, what would I change? Jobs, or would I get out of the Army sooner, or would I go into my practice sooner right after I left? But after thinking about it, I'd use that knowledge and realize I took advantage of some of the positions that I worked in, some of the non-flashy ones, the ones I really didn't appreciate. And so I didn't learn as much as what I could have. When I go back to the previous answer of enjoying the process, like there was times where I did not enjoy the process and I didn't understand it was teaching me something.
Yeah.
And so now I've got to kind of go back and think about that sometimes, like, oh, I wish I would have learned that a bit more. I wish I would have developed that skill a bit more. So I would go back and really commit to every day enjoying that process and just enjoying where I was at. We have sometimes you're thinking about the next job, the next role, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and that's great for a marker, but don't miss out on the present day.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Justin.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I
Wish a lot
enjoyed
of
this.
success with your business.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes. That's it for today's conversation with Justin Shaffer from Growth Navigator Solutions. I hope you found his insight into leadership, growth, and navigating complex growth strategies inspiring and energizing. You'll find all the links to connect with him and with us at SV & Lattice in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with us on Beyond the Deal. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, and keep building your story.